Once upon a time, in a small village by the sea, there lived a girl named Amma. Amma wasn't like the other girls in her village. She loved to swim and play in the ocean, even when everyone told her not to. "Amma, don't go too far into the water," her mother would say. "It's dangerous." But Amma would just laugh. "Don't worry, Mama," she'd say. "I'm strong and brave. The ocean is my friend." Amma's village was full of old stories and rules. The older people in the village, called elders, always told everyone what to do. They said the ocean was full of spirits that could be angry if people didn't follow the rules. But Amma didn't believe in these old stories. She thought they were just made up to scare people. Every day she would go to the beach and swim far out into the waves. She loved the feeling of the cool water on her skin and the way the sun sparkled on the sea. The other kids in the village thought Amma was very brave. They would gather around her and ask her to tell them stories about her swimming adventures. "Tell us about the time you saw the big fish," they would beg. And Amma would smile and say, "I was swimming quietly, and suddenly a huge silver fish swam right under me. It was as big as a house." The children would gasp and clap, amazed by Amma's bravery. As Amma grew older, she became even braver. She started to question all the old rules and stories of her village. "Why should we be afraid of the ocean?" she would ask. "I want to know if these stories are true." Some people in the village admired Amma for her bravery, but others were worried. They would whisper, "Amma is too brave. What if she goes too far?" One day, when Amma was almost grown up, the village chief made a big announcement. He stood in the middle of the village and said in a loud voice, "Listen, everyone, the ocean spirits have spoken to me. They say that no one should go into the water during the next full moon. It's very dangerous." The villagers nodded and agreed. They were used to following what the chief said, but Amma frowned. She didn't believe in ocean spirits, and she didn't think the chief could really talk to them. That night, Amma's parents came to her. "Amma," her father said, "promise us you won't go to the ocean during the full moon. It's not safe." Amma smiled and nodded. "Okay, Papa," she said. But in her heart, she had already decided to go. She wanted to see what would happen. On the night of the full moon, everyone in the village stayed inside their homes. They locked their doors and windows, afraid of what might happen. But Amma waited until everyone was asleep. Then she quietly slipped out of her house and ran down to the beach. The moon was big and bright in the sky, making the ocean glow silver. Amma stood at the edge of the water looking out at the waves. Nothing seemed different or dangerous. "See," she said to herself, "it's just a normal night. There are no angry spirits here." Feeling brave, Amma stepped into the water. It felt cool and nice on her feet. She waded deeper until the water was up to her knees. Still, nothing happened. Amma laughed out loud. "The chief was wrong," she said. "There's nothing to be afraid of." But just as she said those words, something strange happened. The water around her began to glow with a soft blue light. Amma looked down and saw shapes moving under the surface. They looked like people, but with fishtails instead of legs. Amma's heart began to beat very fast. She tried to run back to the shore, but her feet wouldn't move. It was like the water was holding her in place. One of the fish people rose up out of the water in front of Amma. It was a beautiful woman with long green hair and shimmering scales on her face. She looked at Amma with eyes that glowed like stars. "Amma," the fishwoman said in a voice that sounded like waves, "you have come to our sacred waters on the night of our dance. You have shown disrespect for our ways." Amma was so scared she could hardly speak. I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't know. I didn't believe." The fishwoman's face softened a little. "We know you didn't believe, Amma, but sometimes not believing in something doesn't make it go away. Our world is full of magic and mystery, and it's important to respect that." Amma nodded, feeling very small and foolish. "What will happen to me now?" she asked in a tiny voice. The fishwoman smiled. "You will return to your village, Amma, but you will carry a part of our world with you. When the time comes, you will understand." Before Amma could ask what that meant, the fishwoman and all the glowing shapes in the water disappeared. The ocean went back to normal, and Amma found she could move her feet again. Shaking and confused, Amma ran back to her house. She crawled into her bed and pulled the covers over her head, trying to forget what she had seen. The next morning, Amma woke up feeling strange. Her head hurt, and her stomach felt funny, but she didn't tell anyone about what had happened the night before. She was afraid they wouldn't believe her, or that they would be angry with her for breaking the rules. Days passed, and Amma tried to forget about the night of the full moon, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. She didn't feel like swimming as much anymore, and sometimes she thought she could hear whispers in the sound of the waves. A few months later, Amma got married to a kind young man named Kofi. Kofi was a fisherman, and he loved the sea almost as much as Amma did. They were very happy together. Not long after they got married, Amma found out she was going to have a baby. The whole village was excited. They threw a big party for Amma and Kofi, with lots of food and dancing. But as the months went by, strange things started to happen in the village. The fishermen couldn't catch as many fish as usual. The tides were different, coming in at odd times, and sometimes, late at night, people said they could hear strange singing coming from the ocean. The village elders were worried. They thought the ocean spirits might be angry about something. They performed special ceremonies and left gifts on the beach, trying to make the spirits happy again. Amma watched all of this with a heavy heart. She wondered if it had anything to do with what had happened on the night of the full moon, but she still didn't tell anyone about it. As Amma's baby grew inside her, she started to have strange dreams. She dreamed of swimming deep under the ocean, of dancing with the fish people in their underwater cities. She would wake up feeling like her legs were stuck together, like she had a fishtail instead of feet. Finally, the day came for Amma's baby to be born. But something was wrong. Amma was in pain for much longer than normal. The village midwife, an old woman who had helped deliver many babies, looked worried. "This is not a normal birth," she said, shaking her head. Kofi paced outside the house, scared for his wife and unborn child. The whole village gathered, waiting for news. For 3 days and 3 nights, Amma struggled to give birth. The midwife tried everything she knew, but nothing seemed to help. People began to whisper that it must be a curse from the ocean spirits. On the morning of the 4th day, just as the sun was rising over the sea, Amma's baby was finally born. But when the midwife lifted the baby up, she let out a scream of surprise. The baby was not like any baby anyone had ever seen before. From the waist up, it looked like a normal, beautiful baby girl. But where her legs should have been, there was a long, shimmering fishtail covered in tiny, iridescent scales. Amma looked at her baby and suddenly understood what the fish woman had meant that night on the beach. She had carried a part of the ocean world with her, and now that part had become her child. The midwife, still in shock, wrapped the baby in a blanket and handed her to Amma. Despite the strangeness of the situation, Amma felt a rush of love for her daughter. She held the baby close, marveling at her tiny fingers and the soft shimmer of her scales. Kofi came into the room, eager to see his child. When he saw the baby's tail, he stumbled backward in surprise. "What? What is this?" he asked, his voice shaking. Amma looked up at her husband with tears in her eyes. "This is our daughter," she said softly. "She's special." News of the strange birth spread through the village like wildfire. People gathered outside Amma and Kofi's house, whispering and speculating. Some were curious, wanting to see the mermaid baby. Others were frightened, saying it was a bad omen. The village elders came to see the baby. They looked at her with grave faces, muttering to each other in low voices. Finally, the oldest elder spoke. "This child is not natural," he said. "She is a sign from the ocean spirits. They are angry with us, and this is their punishment." Amma held her baby tighter, feeling protective. "She's not a punishment," she said. "She's a gift. She's beautiful and special." But the elders shook their heads. "You don't understand, Amma," another elder said. "This child cannot live in our village. She belongs to the sea. We must return her to the ocean spirits, or we will all suffer." Amma and Kofi were horrified. "No!" Amma cried. "You can't take our baby. She needs us." The village was divided. Some people agreed with the elders, saying the mermaid baby would bring bad luck to everyone. Others felt sorry for Amma and Kofi and thought the baby should be allowed to stay. For days, the arguments went back and forth. Amma and Kofi stayed in their house, taking care of their daughter and worrying about what would happen. They named the baby Mira, which meant sea wonder in their language. Mira was a strange but wonderful baby. She couldn't crawl like other babies, but she could swim amazingly well. Amma and Kofi would take her to a small secret cove and let her play in the shallow water. Mira would splash and giggle, her tail flashing in the sunlight. But taking care of a mermaid baby wasn't easy. Mira needed to be in water for at least a few hours every day, or her scales would start to dry out and become itchy. Amma and Kofi had to be very careful to keep her secret from the rest of the village. As the days passed, more and more strange things happened in the village. The fish continued to disappear, and the weather became stormy and unpredictable. Many people blamed Mira, saying her presence was upsetting the balance of nature. Finally, after a month had passed, the village chief called a meeting. Everyone gathered in the center of the village to hear what he had to say. "People of the village," the chief began, "we have lived in harmony with the ocean for many generations. But now, that harmony has been broken. The spirits of the sea are angry, and we must do something to appease them." The chief looked directly at Amma and Kofi, who were standing at the edge of the crowd, with Mira hidden under a blanket. "Amma, Kofi," he said, "your child is a bridge between our world and the world of the ocean spirits. She cannot stay here in the village, but neither can we simply cast her into the sea." Amma felt her heart beating fast. What was the chief going to say? "There is a small island not far from our shore," the chief continued. "It has fresh water and fruit trees. I propose that Amma, Kofi and their child go to live on this island. There, they can care for the child and act as guardians between our world and the spirit world." A murmur went through the crowd. Some people nodded, thinking this was a good solution. Others looked unhappy, not wanting to send anyone away from the village. Amma and Kofi looked at each other, unsure what to think. Living on an island, away from everyone they knew, would be very hard, but at least they would be together, and Mira would be safe. "Do you accept this proposal?" the chief asked them. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you were captivated by the story I shared in this video, then make sure to hit that subscribe button below. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know when I upload new content, ensuring you never miss out on another compelling story. Don't forget to also turn on notifications so you're always in the loop. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.